really honored to have you guys joining us today. My name is Jennifer Cassinson, and I'm with Buildxact. And we have Spencer Powell with us today, who's coming to us from Colorado, where his family has a really long history serving the home building and remodeling industry. So hopefully, Spencer, you tell us a little bit more about that because it's pretty fascinating. But Spencer is also an expert in marketing and communications. He's the CEO of Builder Funnel, and he's got an amazing presentation for us today with some great case studies and best practices. So Spencer, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll pass it off to you right after I tell the attendees a couple things, just housekeeping items. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, and you can practice being on the chat and tell us where you're coming from today. But put your questions in chat, and Spencer's open to interruptions during the presentation. So we'll just kind of jump in as you have questions and get them answered for you. So thanks again for joining us, and welcome, Spencer. Over to you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into the topic for today because this industry, I think, has long been built on a lot of referral and word of mouth type business. And so, at least from my vantage point, in the hundreds of remodeling companies and building companies that I've talked to, the hurdle is really, once you start generating opportunities with marketing, sales becomes a lot more challenging. So my goal for today is really to help you all get some ideas on how to bridge that gap, and we'll dive into that. So how do we drive some referral type leads, not referrals, but with your marketing efforts? So quick agenda for today. I think it's always important that we define terms. So we'll talk about that to set the stage, and then really get into the meat of how are we going to use our marketing to generate referral type leads. We'll go through a lot of real examples, and then we'll touch on some results from these type of efforts. And then I've got right at the end just some very quick action items. What can we pull out from today, and how do we put it into practice? Because if we're learning something, the next thing we need to do is actually start putting it to use. So we'll leave you with that. And then if we have time for Q&A, I'll stay as long as you guys need to answer any of those questions. Just a little bit of background on me. So my family does come from a long line of builders out in the Seattle market, and been in the construction world for 110 years, roughly. So started 4 generations ago with spec building, built a lot of apartment buildings, got into property management, got into design build. So did a lot of remodels, custom homes, handyman, you name it. And the family had probably done it. I got involved in 2010, really from the marketing side. We scaled up the remodeling division, which was new at the time, from 2 million to 10 million over about 4 years, using primarily digital marketing. And so from that, started building the agency and the company that exists today, Builder Funnel, on kind of the back of the success that we saw there, and said, hey, there's really a gap here, and I think we could serve this industry in a really positive way. And so now we're pretty much a full-time remote agency. We have a few people home base where I'm in Colorado Springs, but we're about 25 spread all over the country. And at this point, we have generated over $150 million in sales for our clients, tied back to our efforts. I wrote a book called Remodeler Marketing Blueprint. So if you like books, that is, it's not on audio, so it is a physical and Kindle version. And if you like podcasts, there's a couple there: Builder Funnel Radio and Remodeler Stories. And then, as a fun fact, I have eaten at all 73 Chipotles in Colorado, and that's a story for another time. But with that being said, let's dive in and talk about what is a referral lead. Because if we think about, like, oh, we all like getting referrals, we always talk about them as the best leads, and those types of things. But I think it's important to think about, like, why is that? And it's really Number one is that trust is built in, right? If you're a remodeler and you worked with Dave and Dave tells his friend, John, hey, go work with these guys. It was awesome. Like when John comes to that conversation, the trust was basically handed off, right? It was transferred automatically. It was already built into that conversation. And so naturally, there's less competition. Like John probably doesn't need to go talk to anyone else because, his friend said, this is a great company. It's easier and faster to close that deal. Again, they're not shopping around. They already have the trust. So they're more in line with just like, yep, let's go through the process and keep moving. And they're also not really comparing a lot of times on price or service and, going out and trying to get 3 or 5 or 7 bids or anything like that. So that's what we're talking about when we think about a referral lead is, a friend, a family member, a colleague, somebody said, hey, these guys are awesome. I worked with them. You can trust them. You can go work with them too. And so then we contrast that with a marketing generated lead, right? You run an ad, somebody finds you online, they see you on social media. There's no trust built in, right? There was no ability for a trust transfer from like in the referral situation. Typically, we see a longer sales cycle because that person is doing more research, right? They want to get to know you a little bit more, so they're doing more digging. They are more price sensitive, or at least they are wanting to get more information from multiple companies. And so they do shop around. And so this right here is where I think a lot of the stigma around like the internet produces junk leads or marketing produces garbage leads comes from, is because we've just inherently got different challenges with these type of opportunities that we don't have with a referral lead and somebody that just gets handed off and kind of like served up on a silver platter, so to speak. Obviously, not all referrals leads close, but a very high percentage do. And it's really because that trust factor. And so when we look at them side by side, you've got trust built in versus no trust. Shorter sales cycle, longer sales cycle, less price sensitive, more price sensitive, less competition, more competition. And so it's easy to see why people get frustrated with marketing or feel like marketing doesn't work. But again, I always go back to, okay, if we know that we've got these challenges, then we need to be stronger on the sales side. We need to be more persistent. We need to have a better value proposition, right? Because how else are we going to grow our business? We can't just rely on, Dave telling his buddy John, these guys are awesome, and then that's how we make the sale. We've got to be able to show the marketplace how we're unique and different, and then communicate that through marketing and sales. So what we're going to talk about today is how we create a referral type lead, and you can do this through marketing. Trust can be built through marketing versus that person referring. And so by doing that, we can get some of those benefits that we do get with a referral lead, easier and faster closing process, less price competition. And so everything that we're going to dive into today, I'm going to show you a lot of examples, a lot of tactics, but also the thought process behind how do we actually build trust through marketing so that we can get the benefits of referral leads and they become these referral type leads. So how do we do that? How do we use marketing to boost these referral type leads and get some of those benefits? Really what I have uncovered, I've been doing this about 13 and a half years, something like that. It's education-based marketing, education-based selling. I look at marketing and sales as combined revenue team, like we're all after the same goal. We're just doing different parts of that process, but marketing and sales need to drive revenue. And so if we take an educational based, value based approach, then we can start to build and earn that trust. And so when we think about that, there are really 8 pillars of trust. There's a really good book on this, and they've done a lot of studies, but there are different components of how trust gets built. There's clarity, compassion, character, competency, commitment, connection, contribution, and consistency. Now I bolded 6 of those. And the reason I bolded 6 of those is those 6 can be built through education-based marketing. You can add clarity to the conversation. You can show your competency. You can show your commitment. You can connect with people. And then you can show how you're contributing. And obviously, consistency is a big part of marketing in general. But we're going to walk through a lot of different tactics that you're probably very familiar with. But what I hope that you do today is look at those tactics through a different lens, and the lens of how am I using these tactical things to actually build trust, so that when somebody actually books a call, enters the sales process, I've maybe built some of these pillars up. I'm not saying they're all going to be at 100%. I'm not saying you're going to have full trust, but if you can lift off the ground from, somebody sees an ad, they click, they call, and they're like, hey, what do you guys do? How much does it cost? They're kind of just coming right at you, versus if they've been in your marketing system for a while, they've been educated, they've seen a lot of content, they've learned a lot from you. They've probably seen your face on like a video or an interview or anything like that. Maybe some team photos, some project photos with your team in it. You can build some of these components, and then as they come to you, they're coming to you not at trust 0, but maybe trust 50 or 60 or 30. And that is going to make the sales process a lot easier. So let's start with different channels that you can use to educate. And so the biggest channel you have is your website. People are going to come here. It's the home base for everything you got going on. There's YouTube and social media and tons of other, listing sites and all kinds of stuff. But your website is home base, and you can start to build some of these trust factors. So clarity and competency, especially through something like a service page or a process page where you can explain how the whole process works. A lot of times I guess the easiest way to think about it is, because we're in our own industry, our expert knowledge just feels normal because it's what you do every day, all the time. You've been doing it for a long time. And so it just feels normal. But to your prospect that maybe has never done a, addition or a kitchen remodel or something like that, maybe it's their first one, even their second one, they really don't know even a fraction of what you know about what to expect, how long it takes, how much it costs, what goes into it, all the details. And so it seems silly to share things like the process or what to expect at every single stage of the process, or how much it costs, or what could impact cost. But by doing all those things and just sharing what feels normal to you comes across as expertise. And so it levels up your competency in their mind, and then raises trust. So the website is a big one. Again, just to zoom in on something like the process page, I think having this page, having video content on here, it also adds a lot of clarity, right? Somebody that's never done this before, they can consume this content and go, oh, wow, now I know exactly what to expect. I'm going to start here. This is what I need to do first. And then, oh, okay, this might take 9 months or 12 months or whatever it is, depending on the project that they're doing. And so the website is a big one. That's one of the tools. Within that, we've also got blogs. And as you guys are kind of jumping in here and chiming into the chat, let me know if you guys are leveraging any of these tools right now, how often, especially around blogging. The blogging world really opens up a lot of opportunity to build trust from an education standpoint. Also at the end, I will share with you, we've been writing a lot of blogs for a long time. So we have a lot of topics that have worked. And I've got a list of 212, and I'll drop you guys a link to that if you're interested. I want to talk about video too. This is one of the other channels or methods that we have to kind of create and distribute content. This one is big. Look at all the trust builders that it checks off. And one of the reasons is people can connect with you face to face. And I first started experiencing this for myself a few years back, and I had started a podcast and been doing webinars and stuff over the years. But somebody would hop on a call with me and they would say, "I feel like I know you," or "Wow, like we're meeting in person." And it's this bizarre thing that they had been following me, seeing me for months and months, sometimes years. And then we connect and I'm meeting them for the first time, but they're just meeting me really for the first time, but they've seen me and they're so comfortable with me. And that's what you can do with your prospects and through your marketing is you can educate and you can just add value over and over and over again. And especially if you do it through video, people are going to connect with you at a deeper level, and they'll see how much you're contributing and how much value you are adding to them, to educate them, to make their process better, to make sure that they get to the finish line the way they want to. So if you're not doing video, that is a massive trust building opportunity. And it's one that allows somebody to come to you and say, "Gosh, I feel like I know you. I've been getting so much value from you. Like we're ready to talk about our project." And so again, thinking about that referral type lead, this is how we start to build up trust. Another way we can do that is through email. And so email is still, I think, one of the most underrated channels that we have access to. We get a lot of email and we're probably all wish we could get a little bit less. But people still open and click on email, and it is a very proven channel. And especially if you train your audience the right way. And what I mean by that is if they open up an email and it's just like, "Hey, book a call with us," or, "This is what we've got, some promo going on," or whatever it is, people kind of get tired of that. But if almost every email is value driven, education driven, and they're getting value from it, you're training them to say, "Oh, when I see something from ABC Remodeling, I want to open that because it's always helpful. It always adds value to me." And so now you've trained them to open it more, engage with it more, click more, and then boom, now we're starting to build, again, that trust that we're looking for to create these referral type leads. Just to give you guys a couple of other examples, I look at email as almost just like a delivery vehicle. So if you write a blog post, publish it, nobody really knows about it. So then we need to use something like our email list to say, "Hey, we just wrote this post over here about the benefits of timber framing. Interesting. If I'm going to build a custom home, I wonder, there's probably thousands of micro decisions that person needs to think through. And if they're thinking through something structural like this around framing, this would be a really value-driven, helpful article to that person." And so again, email just becomes the vehicle. It's the blog that's educating, and then the email is saying, "Hey, we've got something of value for you over here." And we can drive a lot of quick activity through a channel like that. Same with project spotlights. These are a great tool to highlight not only, "Hey, this is our finished product and this is what we're capable of," but you can show those transformations. So you can say, "Hey, these were the challenges with this home. This is what this couple wanted to accomplish with their addition. And so this is the game plan we created. This is how we executed it. And then here was the finished result." And so again, what we're doing here is we're allowing somebody that maybe is in a similar spot to see, "Hey, this is how this company solved the problem. This is how they're looking out for me. These are all these little considerations that they factored in." And so again, if we think about those trust building components, we're able to do that through, again, things like blogs. Project spotlights are another great one. And then social media, right? And so if we think about social media, this is another great way to build a lot of these trust factors. And especially when we think about connection, and a lot of us may not want to get in front of the camera, or, be holding up our phone and shooting reels every day and all that kind of stuff. But if you do want to build referral type leads, then social media is a great channel to drive that connection, build some of that competency with your prospects. And then obviously you want to show that consistency. People Google you, find your website, they pop over to your social media, they're like, they haven't posted in 6 months. Like, I wonder if they're still in business. It seems silly, but that's how our minds work. And so these channels are important, and they can do a lot for us in terms of building up trust. Here's just a couple more examples just to give you guys some food for thought in terms of like, what could you be sharing, spotlighting floor plans, showing kind of some of the like on the construction site, so people can see like, okay, real company doing real work, especially when you're explaining some of the little details. And again, it takes kind of a mindset shift to talk about some of the stuff you're doing, because it will feel normal to you. You'll be like, why am I even sharing this? Like, of course I would do it this way. But that's the stuff that you really want to take and share and educate on. Because if you're saying, of course I would do it this way, that's because you've been doing it 10 years or 5 years or 20 years or whatever it is. You have the training, you're doing it every day, but your prospect, your customer is not. And so just by documenting what you're doing and why you're doing it, you will start to build that competency in the mind of your prospect, and the prospect will view you as an authority and an expert, which is what we're trying to do here. And then obviously we want to be able to display kind of visually, we want to show that we're competent. And so we're fortunate that we work in an industry that we have the opportunity to showcase amazing photos and the detail and kind of the aesthetic, which not every industry has that. And so just great photography and great videography, hiring professionals can go a long way in showcasing that credibility and competency. And so those are kind of the vehicles, so to speak. So we've got our website, we've got blogs, we've got video content on YouTube, and you can distribute it other places. You've got email, and then you've got social media. But the next question that usually comes up is, what do we educate on? And we've looked at a couple of examples as we were going through kind of the vehicles. And I want to walk you through some more so that you guys can take some notes and say, hey, these are some easy things that we can start educating on. And again, I do have that list of 212 blog topics. Those could be blogs, those could be videos, those could be any type of content really, and that will give you a lot of content for the next several years, hopefully. But a process page, I think adding a video to this page is really powerful. Somebody hits your page, they want to learn, what is this going to entail? What are all the milestones? What are the steps? And then forming that connection. Again, if it's the owner, if it's somebody in sales that they might be meeting with, but somebody walking them through that process via video where they can really connect at a more personal level is going to separate you. Cost is another one. This is one that falls into that transparency bucket, I think, is, hey, this is a topic that's maybe uncomfortable to talk about. How much does a kitchen remodel cost? How much does a basement, completion cost, finishing, something like that? These are the questions that people want to know, right? They're typing them into Google, they're looking for them. And if you can be the one that says, hey, we're going to tackle this anyway in the sales process. And if I know somebody's Googling this, why not be the one to tackle this topic and do it in a blog, in a video? And you don't have to say a kitchen costs, $98,432.25, because you can't. There's too many factors, and that's not the reality. And so again, it allows you to educate. You can say, hey, in the Atlanta area, a kitchen typically will cost between $75,000 and $350,000. Here's why you might be in that $75,000 to $100,000 range. We're not moving a lot of walls. The finishes aren't super upgraded. You can talk through all of those. And then you could say, here's why you might be kind of in the middle. Here's why you might be on the high end of that. And that process, again, is like normal knowledge to you, but to somebody else, they just go, that number doesn't seem right, or they don't understand the context of it. And so we don't need to give them all of the little details and how much labor costs in each single line item. I'm not talking about stuff like that, but generally giving them ranges and why something might be lower, in the middle, or a lot higher. This level of transparency, again, is building trust, tackling these topics and these questions that people are going to Google with and trying to find. And so when they make it into the sales process, you've already answered a lot of the questions. And we'll get to that in a little bit, kind of the impact it has down the path after marketing. We talked a little bit about project spotlights, but being able to feature these types of projects, these start to connect. So again, just thinking about all these trust builders, connect with your audience. The more of these you build out, you have a kitchen project in one neighborhood, and then another neighborhood, and then another neighborhood. Now, if somebody comes to the page and they were wanting to do a kitchen, they see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kitchens, and then they find one that's very similar to what they were thinking about, or they find another one that's like, that's a little different, but that's the same neighborhood. These things seem little, but they're so powerful for building that, again, connection, credibility. Hey, they've done a project like this in my neighborhood. They could probably do this project for me. And so that's one of the things that we can accomplish through these project pages. So here's just a couple more examples. These are my preferred pages over just like a blanket portfolio, because you can really dive into the meat of the project and kind of the why, and you can tell the whole story. So yes, we want to display the photos and like before and after is great, or just the magnificent after. But what went into it? Like, why did this family or couple or person want to do the remodel? Why did they want to do the project? What were they trying to accomplish? What were they starting with? What was the strategy? What was the thinking behind the design? All of those things can be told through project pages and spotlight pages.
Hey, Spencer, I have a quick question. So
yeah, fire away.
How would you recommend people address like photo rights, and do you have people submit their photos? Do you have them sign a waiver when you use their imagery?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a smart thing to build into your contracts that just say, hey, we're going to want to photograph this project when it's done. We may even want to stage it. And depending on the scope of the project, you'll have to evaluate, how much you want to invest in it. But having a professional photographer come in with lighting, getting the right shots, is worth it. It's absolutely worth it. So yeah, if you need to build it into your contracts just to make sure you have that option, I think that's the best, because then you have the option at the end to say, this project wasn't that great or interesting, like we don't want the photos. But then you can, at least if you do want them, you've already got that in writing. I think most people are okay with it, as long as there isn't, they don't have to reveal personal information. I know some clients are totally fine with it. You see a lot of projects on websites that have like the last name. I think I don't actually like to use the last name. I like to use a description, like modern kitchen remodel in the Broadmoor, which is like a very high-end neighborhood here in Colorado Springs. Like, now I'm getting multiple benefits. One is, if somebody does a Google search for a kitchen remodel in the Broadmoor, like I'm going to show up, and now I can attract more of the types of projects that I want in the high-end neighborhoods that I want. But two, it just adds a lot of credibility. Again, going back to all those trust factors, if somebody can see, hey, they did this type of project in this high-end neighborhood, then you've accomplished that goal. But yeah, in terms of just getting the photos, build it into your contract. That's the easiest way. If you haven't done that, then I would just go back to clients and you're like, man, I really wish I got photos of that. You could just go back to them and say, hey, this was an amazing project. We still think about it today. We'd love to get some professional photos. Like, can we work out a time to do that and set that up, and then just coordinate it. And if that's the case, I would get them to sign off on, like, we're going to use this in our marketing, if it hadn't previously been signed off on. Cool. Good question. Let me know if anything else is coming in. The other kind of bucket is FAQs. This one is a lot around like cost and everything. But one of the best like tools that I have for this is think about all the questions that you get in the sales process. So initial discovery call, you're getting some questions from the prospect. Those are all great blogs, website pages, videos, emails that you can write. Then what's the first meeting? Okay, let's think about all the questions we get in that first like in-home consultation or something like that. Let's continue to document all of those questions. And then every step in the sales process, you're going to get some. And then here's the bonus. When somebody's a customer and you're going through each phase, you're going through the design phase, you get more questions that come up, document those. And then you're going into production, more questions come up, document those. You're going to have dozens of questions. And then now this fuels blogs, emails, social, video content. And so the thing to think about is if somebody's asking it in the sales process, there's probably a whole bunch more people that are Googling that question, typing that in. So not only does this start to, build trust when somebody is on your site and they're reading through all these FAQs, but it can actually help attract more people to the website. So dual benefit there. And then the blog is a giant untapped opportunity for many. It allows you to cover a wide range of topics. So if you look at like this screen here, you can see like the home page, the about, services, the gallery, pretty standard type pages. There are really only so many pages you can build into what I would call like the core website. But something like this, the budget-friendly ways to make your bathroom feel like a spa, it's not really going to be a main website page, but this is a great way to educate prospects and even past customers. So if we think about just that value-based education-driven marketing, but again, it's dual benefit. It's also going to pull in people that are thinking about doing a bathroom remodel or spicing up their bathroom in some way. And so if somebody hits this post, they're reading through it, they're now on your website associating, positive educational material with your brand, and we're raising that trust level from 0 and pulling it off the ground. So again, I've got a whole list of blog topics that can keep you busy for a couple of years, but this whole presentation isn't on blogging, but I'll just say it's one of my favorite marketing tools of all time, because you start to build this library of assets. All these blogs that are on your site are sitting there getting indexed in Google, and they're getting found for all these various keywords. I have blogs that I wrote 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago that are still on our website today. People are still finding them, they're coming in. And so they're great investments into your marketing and your brand as a whole.
Also, Spencer, what about staying up to date on SEO terminology or the latest trends? Because I know that changes on a regular basis.
Yeah. Was the question just like, what are the best ways to stay on top of that stuff? Or
yeah, how do you stay current? Yep.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's the short answer. The ways to do it are to basically be following. There's a lot of I'll call them like large scale SEO companies that do a lot of research. They do a lot of testing, and they try to get lots of aggregate data to figure out like, hey, what are the factors that are influencing how you show up in Google? How do you show up in the map? How do you show up in organic search? And I think at this point there's well over, 200-300 ranking factors that go into how do you show up at the top of Google. And there's a lot of sites that have, lists of those. I'll see if I can, there's a couple really good ones that we refer back to all the time. And if we can send that in the follow-up material, just remind me and I'll send that so everyone has it. But it's really just following some of those like SEO thought leaders that are doing this on a very, very large scale. And then we want to apply that framework to our industry. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like anything that's changing really fast, like social media, SEO, if you're following AI, it's really the best way to stay on top of it is to be consuming information from various sources and making sure that you are paying attention, because if you're paying attention, then you're most likely going to catch a lot of the current best practices or the big shifts and pivots. It's when you're just like, I don't know, it's too complicated and you just ignore it. That's what I find is then you're kind of out of luck. Our company, we always thought this was a challenge from the start. And so one thing we started with was just, hey, every week, everyone's going to pull an article on this topic, something they've been reading, and we're going to cross share as a team. And so that was just like a very efficient way to get lots of different viewpoints on whatever topic it was. So in this case, we're talking about SEO. Yeah, I mean, we try to put out a lot of content on this. So we've got a podcast and a YouTube channel where you can find a lot of that kind of stuff. So I always try to find people that are spending like all of their time in it and like just go follow them, because if it's not your full-time job, then it can be really tough to make it a big priority to dig into the weeds yourself. All right. This is another fun way to accomplish the trust building exercise that we're trying to do here, and that's behind the scenes. Social media really opened up the door on this one. Before social, when you had websites, there wasn't a great format for this, but now you can show this. You can show your team. You can show on the job site stuff that's happening, and people are fascinated by it. So it does attract a lot of attention. But again, the more you can show somebody, it's more tangible and they can connect with you. They can see the team that they potentially might be working with. And it adds a lot of that transparency. And you're hearing me like reference a lot of these trust building components over and over again, because I'm hoping that you're looking at all of these tactics that you probably already know about, but through a new lens and maybe a new angle on like, why am I actually doing social media, or why am I actually writing blogs? And sometimes there's multiple purposes to these things. But at the end of the day, what a great marketing system should do for you is tee up more sales opportunities that are warmer. Trust is not starting at zero, and we're creating these referral type leads. All right, so let's dive into a couple of examples, just some real results, and then we'll transition into some action items and take some more questions. This is a remodeler. They started at about 2.6 million. I think at this point, I think this year they're going to be just shy of 7 million. But the way we accomplished a lot of this growth is through answering questions and being transparent and building trust through that transparency of content, really. And so we created a cost campaign. We talked about, cost and ranges. We talked about the process and really thought about like, hey, if somebody is wanting to do this certain type of project, what questions are they asking? How can we address those up front? And so then again, if they get to a sales conversation, they're like, how much is this going to cost? And then you give them a rough range and they're like, yeah, that sounds about right. It's like they got that information from your website and it's congruent. So these guys have experienced a lot of growth. Here's another one. And this, again, taking a content-based strategy that was very focused on local blog content. So writing that content on a regular basis, and then distributing that through email and through social. And it's covering a lot of the things that you saw all the examples on earlier. So FAQs, process-based questions, trends, cost-based questions. And again, what it starts to do for you is draw in a lot of people that are looking for this information. Then they get there, they're consuming it. You're giving to them first. So you've given them value, you've educated them, and now we're building that trust. We convert them, they stay in front of us, they follow on social media, they get some emails from us. Now we're getting multiple touches. So we're building some more familiarity. And then they start to enter into the sales process. So as I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you guys today, I think sometimes it's like, okay, this still just looks like a bunch of stuff to do, write a big list of like blogs and emails and web content. But what it starts to actually feel like on the sales side are these things. Hey, I've been following you for a while now, and we're ready to start our project. That is much, much different than a typical person that maybe just like saw a sign or did a quick Google search and just like called immediately. They are coming at that from a more like walls are up, their guard is up, they've got a lot of questions, they're a little standoffish, they're doing a lot of research, versus somebody that's maybe followed you for 6 months. They have read 10 of your blogs, they've watched 3 or 4 videos, they've seen you on social media, they've opened several emails. Like, they're comfortable with you. They're a lot more comfortable. So you'll start hearing things like, I've learned so much, and I feel like I already know you. That is the big one. And that's when when you start hearing that in sales, whether it's the owner, sales team, whoever it is, if they can say, I feel like I already know you, you know that your marketing is starting to create referral type leads, because it's building that connection with them. And it's super cool when you start to experience it. But this is what it looks and feels like in production too. Clients know what to expect at every stage because you've addressed a lot of that in the content. So when they get there, they're referring back to the education they received from you, and what they read, and then it lines up with what they're experiencing. And so you get a lot less pushback in production. Alignment is a lot tighter. And so when you think about the whole experience for that customer, it starts with education. Then you move into sales where you've got a little more trust baked in. They move forward and they're going through the process. And it's exactly what they read about in the marketing stage. It's what was communicated in the sales process. And now they're experiencing it. And so everything goes a lot smoother. And so when I think about marketing, I kind of see it as like sitting across all the departments, because it's baked in to everything that you're doing. And it really starts with the education and the trust building up front. Okay, so I want to wrap with how to get started with all this. And there's a good chance that you may be doing a lot of these tactics already, but I think it's important that we talk about strategy. And I think one of the things I've seen a lot of over the last several years is people that will attend a webinar like this or go to a conference, and you'll sit in on a session, and the session could be great. And maybe it's all about Instagram and how to use Instagram to grow your business or something like that. That's just a tactic. And so you'll get lots of like, you should post this many times and on these certain days, and at 7:30 a.m. And then when people are getting off, you'll hear all of those little details. And so when you walk away, you're like, okay, the answer is post to Instagram 5 times a week at these certain times. But if we don't start with a strategic approach, then we don't know who we're trying to attract, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to attract, and then where. So the first step is really just documenting and identifying who is that ideal client. And so in marketing, we call them personas, but it's Richard and Kelly in their low to mid 30s. And then we've got a bunch of information that we kind of generally know about this type of person, which social media channels they're on, how they like to communicate, what their goals are at that stage of their life, the projects that they're typically looking to do. And then we also have this other persona of 50s, early 60s. They have different goals. They're on different channels. They have different interests. And so that will start to dictate the content that we create and the education that we deliver. And so it's really important that we nail this down. We need to know the types of projects that you want to attract. I found in marketing for this industry, like you target in on the things that you definitely want more of. So if you do kitchens, baths, basements, additions, whole home remodels, but you're like, I really want a lot of kitchen or kitchen plus projects, right? A kitchen and a bath, or market to that. And then just by marketing to that, you're still going to pull in some of this other stuff, and you can say yes or no to it. But if you haven't defined what you actually want to attract, then when you go to create that social post for a Monday or write that blog post this month, you don't know what to write about, because you're like, well, I could write about a zillion things. But if you know, oh, these are my ideal clients, this is my ideal project, okay, now that narrows down what I'm going to create on the marketing side. And then the last one is, where do you want to work? And so we want to be able to target very locally most of the time, unless you're regional or national company, then you're going to have a different strategy. But for many listening, probably in the local area. And so you may have 2 or 3 cities or a bunch of neighborhoods or several cities that you work in. But again, it's who, what are the types of projects, and where do we want to do those projects? And now that zooms our focus and adds a lot of clarity to, okay, now we know what project spotlights we really want to put a lot of effort into, right? So those pro photos we talked about, well, if it's in one of our target, top neighborhoods, then we're definitely doing a project spotlight for that. And we're going to promote that on social media, and we're going to string out the photos, and that'll give us a lot of social content. I might do a video about it, and then we'll do a couple of emails promoting it. And so, okay, now those are all the tactics, but those tactics get overlaid on the overall strategy. And so I'll wrap with this, which is a list of tactics that probably look very familiar, but when you have the strategy first, then you layer this on. This is the framework that we've used to generate over $150 million for our clients. And it's breaking these things into buckets and what purpose they serve. So a lot of the things we talked about today, website content, targeted blog posts, we barely touched on SEO as it relates to some of those keywords, social media. Those are all things that drive traffic to the website along with paid. Once they get there, we want to capture and convert and engage that audience. We didn't talk about it today. We can maybe do that on another webinar, but we get into like lead converters, and then back to some of the things we did talk about today on the nurturing bucket. And that's where a lot of this trust gets built. And this is where a lot of that creation of referral type leads happens, is in email marketing and social media, because they're going to find you via the traffic drivers, and then they're going to start consuming content and then staying in front of you. And typically it's through email. And so you're going to email them about a blog post, you're going to email them about a video, you're going to email them and drive them to maybe a social post that you created. And that's where you're really going to start to build the repetition, the consistency, the connection with them before they enter into the sales process. If this is something that you guys want help with, I've got a quick QR code. You can always snag some time with our team. Should just take you to the booking link. But at this point, I think we can open it up for Q&A. And then I do want to, I'll snag that link that I can send to you guys with the topics.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is a great presentation. I know, Greg, thank you. He's also saying thank you, Spencer. Great information. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Really appreciate everybody attending today, and really appreciate your presentation, Spencer. So thank you guys so much. The recording will come out later in an email, and we appreciate your time today. And another one. It's a fantastic presentation.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.